Zola's life begins as an image of perfection, shaped by the expectations of his father, the respected pastor of their village. Zola is portrayed as a diligent, good-hearted man, admired by the villagers for his commitment to his faith and community. However, a shadow looms over his character, his past relationship with Amina, a passionate and ambitious young woman. Through a series of flashbacks, we learn about their ill-fated romance. Amina, pregnant and hopeful for a future with Zola, is devastated when he forces her to undergo an abortion, succumbing to the pressures of his father's moral expectations and his own fears of a life that wasn't in line with the path set for him. The decision leaves Amina emotionally shattered, and Zola carries the guilt of what he has done. Despite the outward appearance of respectability, Zola's inner turmoil begins to eat at him. The narrative reveals how his decision to appease his father ultimately fractured his own soul, a burden he carries as he tries to live a righteous life. In the present, Zola continues to honor his father's legacy, but the unresolved guilt of his past looms heavily over him. His connection to Amina, though distant, remains unresolved. The chapter sets the stage for the re-emergence of that painful history when Amina returns to the village. Amina's life post-abortion is one of slow, silent decay. She leaves the village and moves to the city, hoping to escape the painful memories of her past. The city, however, cannot offer her solace. Amina struggles to move past her grief, and in the depths of her depression, she finds that she has lost the ability to bear children. Her sense of womanhood and identity is shattered by the miscarriage of her future. As the years pass, Amina nurtures the thought of returning to the village, where Zola has seemingly built a life of happiness and fulfillment. The very idea of him being a father to another child while she remains childless, haunted by the ghosts of their past, becomes unbearable. The chapter ends with Amina making a firm decision: she will return and destroy the happiness Zola has created, making him feel the pain she's endured. Zola's life appears to have taken a turn for the better. He marries Malaika, a wise and compassionate woman from a neighboring village. The couple's relationship is one of mutual respect, and they seem to be a perfect match. Malaika's quiet strength complements Zola's passionate heart. Their marriage is celebrated by the village, and there's a sense of joy and optimism surrounding their union. When Malaika discovers she is pregnant, Zola's joy is boundless. The memory of his previous failures as a partner to Amina weighs on him, but he is determined to do better this time. He dreams of being a loving father and is hopeful that this child will be a new beginning for him, a chance to heal the wounds of the past. We see Zola's internal conflict. His guilt over the way he treated Amina still nags at him, but he is also filled with hope for the future. His relationship with Malaika is portrayed as gentle and nurturing, a stark contrast to his relationship with Amina, which was tainted by manipulation and fear. The couple plans for the baby's arrival, and Zola begins to imagine a life where he can be a father without the shadows of his past haunting him. But unbeknownst to him, Amina is watching, her mind set on revenge. Amina returns to the village after several years of self-imposed exile. She comes back under the guise of reconciliation, claiming to have changed and seeking closure. Her arrival is met with a mixture of surprise and curiosity. Some villagers are sympathetic, remembering the young woman who once loved Zola, while others are more skeptical of her intentions. Amina's presence stirs unease in Zola. Despite his attempts to be civil, there is an underlying tension whenever she is around. He tries to focus on his new life with Malaika, but Amina's return brings up painful memories of the past. Zola, unaware of Amina's true intentions, begins to notice small changes in Malaika's behavior. She seems weaker, more tired, but brushes off his concerns. The seeds of tragedy are sown as Amina's plan begins to take shape. Chapter 5: The Seeds of Betrayal. Amina's manipulation of Malaika becomes more pronounced in this chapter. Amina carefully cultivates a close relationship with Malaika, offering advice and support under the pretense of friendship. She gains access to Malaika's household and begins to subtly influence her, making sure to poison her food little by little. Malaika's health begins to deteriorate, but she does not understand why. She feels fatigued, dizzy, and faint but attributes it to the stress of the pregnancy. Zola, focused on his work and the impending birth, does not immediately notice the signs of something being wrong. As Amina continues to poison Malaika, the tension in the village grows. The weather becomes colder, and the villagers are more focused on their own affairs, unaware of the dark forces at play in their midst. The chapter highlights Amina's calculated approach, her ability to maintain an outward appearance of innocence while carrying out her cruel plan in secret. Malaika's condition worsens, and she unexpectedly goes into labor far too early. Despite the efforts of the village healers, the baby is stillborn. The entire village is shaken, and the grief of Zola and Malaika is palpable. The death of their child is a devastating blow, and the mystery of why it happened lingers in the air. Unbeknownst to them, Amina watches, her heart cold with satisfaction. Zola and Malaika's world crumbles after the tragic death of their child. The village gathers to mourn, and the once happy couple is enveloped in an overwhelming silence. Despite the sorrow that lingers, the mystery of the miscarriage only deepens as Zola grows increasingly suspicious. He can't understand how something so cruel could happen to them after all they've endured. Malaika is still recovering from the trauma of the early labor, unable to explain the physical decline she suffered before the miscarriage. She feels a gnawing sense of guilt, even though she doesn't know why. As the village's healers prepare to leave, shaken by the loss, Malaika's condition continues to worsen. She collapses in the courtyard one evening, and the village's elderly healer, old Mama Igioma, insists that something darker may be at play. While the village is caught in its grief, Zola begins to notice the unsettling presence of Amina around them. She's there, offering condolences, but her smile doesn't quite reach her eyes. Zola is not one to jump to conclusions, but the oddness of her behavior stirs a suspicion within him. That night, after an unsettling visit from Amina, Zola confronts Malaika. His voice is tense as he demands to know if she's noticed anything strange lately. Malaika, too exhausted to understand, weakly admits that she's felt off but thought it was just the stress. Zola isn't convinced. As his anger rises, he storms out of their home, heading to the village square to gather information. He approaches the elders, eyes burning with determination. His voice shakes as he demands answers. Something is wrong, something that no one has yet acknowledged, and Zola knows it. The village is full of whispers, but he needs the truth. The next night, Zola couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the distant sounds of the village winding down for the night. He had no idea what would happen next, but he knew it would be violent. When the shadows shifted at the window, Zola leapt out of bed, heart racing. He grabbed his knife from the bedside table and stood by the door, waiting. He could feel the presence of someone outside, lurking, and his instincts told him it was Amina. The door creaked open slowly, and Zola didn't hesitate. He charged forward, meeting the intruder before they could reach him. The hidden blade was already in motion, but Zola was faster. He disarmed her in a swift motion and pinned her against the wall, breathing heavily. Amina's face was a mask of fury. "I will make you pay for every second of happiness you've had," she spat. But there was something else in her eyes, desperation. She was a woman broken beyond repair. Zola stood frozen, knife in hand, breathing heavily as he tried to make sense of the situation. He couldn't kill her, not now. But he knew the village elders would not let this pass without consequence. The village was divided. News of the confrontation spread like wildfire, and the elders called for a trial. Zola stood at the center, his mind a blur of anger, fear, and guilt. Amina had confessed to poisoning Malaika, to plotting the murder of his unborn child, and to the attempt on his own life. She had no defense, but still, the villagers could not bring themselves to entirely condemn her. Revenge, the elder chief spoke solemnly, is a powerful weapon, but it will destroy those who wield it. The villagers murmured in agreement, but there was no question of what needed to be done. Zola, his heart torn between anger and mercy, stood silently. He had lost too much to act with coldness now. "Let the judgment be fair," he said, his voice steady despite the storm inside. The elders deliberated, and in the end, they handed down their decision. Amina would be executed, but not without a final plea from Zola. He asked that her death be swift, without further suffering. The sentence was carried out before the sun rose. Zola stood alone in the center of the village, the weight of the trial settling on his shoulders. His hands trembled slightly, but he felt something new rising within him, an understanding of the cost of revenge, and the price of forgiveness. Amina's death had not freed him, nor had it undone the pain she had caused. But in this moment, Zola realized the depth of his own mistakes. Malaika, ever the pillar of strength, stood beside him. Her hand in his, she didn't speak. There was no need for words. Together, they had walked through the fire, and together, they would rebuild. Zola's life had changed. The scars of the past would always remain, but the path forward was clear. He would rebuild his community, starting with the one thing he still had left, his faith.